Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We'll move on to new certified staff candidate introductions. And Rick, please.
Yes, we have two before you tonight for approval. I do have one in the crowd. I'm not sure where the other one is, but with the rain and so forth, who knows? But we do have with us Amanda Buchanan. Amanda, if you would please
Hi,
stand
Amanda.
up. Amanda is a special education teacher at Walden, completed her student teaching early in December, and we got her right away as a sub. She got on board with us, and we were able to snag her relatively quickly after that, after spending some time with us as a sub. So we welcome her.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you. We're glad you're here.
And I see people who walked in and somebody's behind somebody else. Is that Caroline?
No.
No? Okay. All right.
And you don't have to stay if you don't want to.
I've briefed her on that.
Okay.
And we also have Caroline, bye. We also have Caroline Redmond on the agenda tonight, social worker at the high school, one of these gen ed social workers that we're introducing through the programs that we've been allotted here recently. And
Great.
her name may ring a bell. She is a former student.
Yes.
Former, so we're looking forward to it.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so move on to learning highlights and communication update. Mark, please.
Thank you, Jim. We'll start with the communications report. So there's a number of things that are happening that we've been having go on, and so that's exciting. The Inside the Dragons show we shared this week. It's out there, the topics, and we'll share again looking forward. It's in the rotation as always for ONTV on the education channel, so you can see it there, and you can also see it on our YouTube channel. March is Reading Month. We talked about the Walden, when they had that dodgeball for the Greeks and the Athenians. Paige Walker, who's a senior, she's a musician, and she's going to go to Vienna, Austria, so we had a little feature on her. And Stadium Drive students when they went to the high school. So there's a number of interesting things. Working on the Orion Living for the summer, and that's about the strategic planning, so we're going to learn a lot more about that tonight and talk about that tonight, and that's going to inform, obviously, the things that the community is going to learn about, because the community is very invested, obviously, in our district, so that's something that we've been working on as well. One thing that the township has partnered with the district, and especially the high school, is something called Recycle Bank. For those of you who live in Orion, which is most of you, what you get when you do your recycling, you may not know it, but you get 250 points, and you can donate those back to the high school, and it helps fund potential recycling and green projects. So that's something that is an opportunity, and the township has information. We sent out a peach jar about it to all the families a couple weeks ago. So, and if anyone has any questions, they can contact me or the district, and we can help them if they need to know how to share their points. So that's definitely something that you can do to support the schools as well. A couple of things that are coming up. On April 26th, the media specialists in the middle school level will be hosting an event with an author, and they're going to be having the Chris Cakes, who does those pancakes and flips them. It's going to be at Scripps, and I think it's going to be, and so you can register. It's really, I think it's like $7 a person, so that's great. We'll share the information about that if someone's interested, but it's for all of the middle schools together, so it's really an opportunity for everyone to hear the author and meet the author and everything. Our middle school media specialists, as we share often, are really innovative and creative, and we really appreciate that. Just want to give you a little heads up. On May 26th, the LHS band is going to perform at the Tigers game downtown. We'll have a link to buy tickets soon. We don't have it yet, but that's going to be an opportunity, obviously, a great time. If you remember a couple years ago when the choir sang there, it was great. We had a great Lake Orion representation as well, so hopefully, people will turn out for that as well. And in terms of the website. The biggest change we've made recently is we created a health and wellness page, and to consolidate a lot of the different things we've had throughout the website in terms of health. And Rick can probably address a little more of the reasons for doing that and everything.
Sure. So a good portion of it, we had the whole COVID issue, and that was its own separate entity, and that is kind of, morphed into some other things. And then we have forms for different medical issues that students may have that we keep on file that parents can download and bring back from the doctors and so forth. And it just was kind of not a real streamlined process, if you would. So with our nurses, we've been working with them. We're updating some of our forms that will roll out for next year. We haven't changed our forms yet for this year, but we're trying to streamline and also give parents resources that they can go to on our website if they have questions or need some direction, health-related. So I appreciate Mark's efforts. Mark has put a lot of time and effort into this, as always. The website guru, if you would, and working with our nurses and building secretaries, so we thank him.
And we folded the COVID information, it's all still on the website, but now it's on that page, so people can find that as well. So, thanks, Rick. Okay, in terms of the learning highlights and important things in the district, we'll get there. Maybe. Okay. The STEM-I trailer, if you get it, STEM-I, semi, that's Oakland Schools. This is a venture with Oakland Schools, and they came to each of the different districts and gets this truck for a week. Inside the truck, it's a 1,000 square foot mobile lab. It provides learners with meaningful hands-on experience with the latest industry technologies. When we went in there, I know that a number of cabinet visited throughout the week as well, and you can see the different opportunities that they had. There's smart manufacturing, collaborative robots, self-driving vehicles, and extended reality. So it really, when you saw the kids in there, their interaction, they were so surprised. I mean, Rosa Everett, who helped organize this from the high school. She's an assistant principal, but she's also the district CT coordinator, and she deals with older kids all the time. And she said afterwards that she was so amazed by the enthusiasm of these elementary kids. They're all the fourth grades. All of the fourth grades in the district went, and because they felt, Heidi, you can help me, but they felt that was the most appropriate age to learn this stuff. And the students, I was there when the first group came in on Monday, and it was raining out, it was cold, and they walked in there, and they were just blown away. They just loved touching everything. And obviously that's some of, what the last couple of years have been like, but the opportunity to get in there and be a part of it, it really was unique. And so we got it for our week, and it goes to another district each week. But for us, our students really took advantage. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's for sure. The day that I visited, yes, the class did not want to leave. And so there was having a situation with when was it going to be back and, all of those sorts of things. So it was a great experience for all of our fourth grade students, for sure.
Absolutely, and it helps. Our partnership with Oakland Schools really makes it nice that, they're able to do these things and provide some resources to us. In terms of the Lake Orion Education Foundation, we're always trying, as Heidi has talked about a couple times, it's trying to rebuild, and they're trying to get a little bit more of a footing. And the Red Wings had come to us and offered to the district a fundraising opportunity. People bought tickets, then money would kick back, and it's more appropriate for the foundation. So the money's $5 from every ticket sold. And I think that we had a group, but I think that some of that was maybe people hadn't moved back into sporting events as much, but we're going to do it again next year. And then we're going to hopefully get a larger group, and people will want to, go, and maybe it'll be at a convenient time. And so that's something, it's an opportunity for the foundation. It was really nice. Jillian Knapp, our Orion Oaks principal, you can see her up there. She got me a couple pictures and everything, so it was really cool. It's hard to see kind of in the lower right scoreboard picture, but the picture on the scoreboard is all Lake Orion people all together in a picture, so it's really cool. There was a good chunk of them. I know more than 50 tickets, so. This is interesting. I was at Scripps one day, and I saw them doing bowling in the gym. So they're all lined up in the gym, facing both ways and knocking down pins, and the kids are resetting the pins. And it just really was an interesting thing to see. You think about gym as running and basketball and stuff, but Kim McCool, who's at Scripps, is really dynamic. She wins awards, for all her innovative ideas. She has them when it's nice, she has them biking all around the campus and stuff. And this was really another one of her good thoughts. Child Abuse Prevention Month, the Orion Area Youth Assistants discussed that, and they brought it through. Lauren Smith, who's our principal at Paint Creek, is on their board, and she brought it to all the other elementary principals. And they wore blue one day to represent it, and these little pinwheels were in front of all of the buildings with these little signs acknowledging that whole idea. And I think that that's something that, we wanted to recognize, our elementaries did, and it was a conscious effort by them. So, and each of the schools, made it really, it was about awareness. It's Prevention Awareness Month to bring this to the fore. So that was really an opportunity for our buildings to get behind that. Early childhood, they're really good about sending pictures about what's happening. And Jessica Stanford, who works there, sends me pictures quite often. And this is them doing science. You can see the enthusiasm of those little kids. They may not know what the science project is, but they're excited anyway. This is at Stadium Drive Elementary. As part of the bond projects, this is the work that began over spring break, and they had been prepping for it before. Dan Dabrowski is our media specialist there, and you can see they took away his media center because they're renovating it between now and then, and the STEM lab is going to be built where the old office was and everything. But you can see in the lower two pictures, that's his new media center, the stage of the auditorium. So he's really adapted well to it and moved everything in quickly. It just took a couple of days, but he's got a lot of stuff in there that he had in his media center. So, we always admire and appreciate our staff who can adapt and look at the short term for the longer term benefit that they're going to have. This last week was Media Specialist Week and Assistant Principals Week, so we honored both of them. These are two groups that are often overlooked, because they're not at the front of anything, but they're working every day, and we wanted to give them some acknowledgement as well. This was something that happened, I think it was 2 days ago, whatever that nice day was, not today. That the students, Francie Robertson and Shelby Watts, do this on a regular basis. And what they do every year is they have the students come and learn about the American Revolution. So this lesson there were students who were tax collectors. You can see, I'll go away from the mic, I'll talk about this. These students were tax collectors, and they had to collect taxes. Everyone had Skittles in their cups, and they had to pay their tax. So the questions had to do with things like, do you have a certain color hair? Do you have certain color eyes? Did you eat lunch today? And then afterwards, the discussion was about, why did I have to pay a tax for this when everyone did this, and that type of thing. This is jail. If they didn't have enough Skittles left and they got called, they had to go to jail. And this is Shelby Watts, our teacher, who is dynamic, and she obviously dressed up like King George, and when she came out, the kids went crazy because they saw her in the costume, and this is something she does every year, but every year the kids just love it. So, we appreciate her enthusiasm. The LHS robotics team at the Walled Lake event, I guess it was last week, they won the Chairman's Award, which is a really high honor at that event. And I think that a lot of the Chairman's Award goes into collaboration and how much you work with the other teams, and they have a great reputation for doing that with the other teams. So that's really something that we're proud of.
And it's a golden ticket. They go right to states with that.
Okay.
Awesome. They do, yeah.
And the Upper Peninsula artifacts. This is Patty LaRue, who was our Stadium Teacher of the Year this year. And I asked her a little bit about this. She had these artifacts from the UP. They're specimens from copper mines and ore and slag and lumber items, 5,000-year-old Native American hammerstones. But this is an example of our teachers going above and beyond. She goes around the state and acquires these things in her free time, in her summers, and that's where she brings them back to add to the social studies curriculum. And that's something that's really, so today, this is from a couple days ago, today they were eating pasties in the classroom and talking about the cultural ties between the foods the miners eat and the countries they immigrated from. So.
Pasties.
Pasties, yes. I find it.
Get it straight.
A little picture of me on the corner.
Pasties,
I am
sorry.
an Upper
My-
Peninsula artifact.
I love it.
I didn't say that. This is, spring sports have started. The baseball team went to Myrtle Beach. And there's water polo, and there's track. And Scott, you want to talk about that picture there?
So that is Evelyn Taylor and Gabby Buckey. And the left side of that picture, 6 and 11, that was their first club game when they were 6. And then they played their first high school game together last Tuesday at Rochester, which was really cool. And I'm getting all misty. But, you know, those girls, I mean, all the sports, a lot of those kids have done it their whole lives, but, you know, they literally have been doing it for 9 years, off and on together, but it was just really cool to see them on the same field again, so it was cool. And they won Tuesday and Thursday. They beat Rochester and they beat Stony Creek. And they did not win yesterday against Adams, but they got a game on Thursday, and they've got some really good teams. It's fun. It's fun getting, I've never gotten to go and have a kid actually playing high school, so it's cool to see. Thanks for putting it on there. That's cool.
Thank you. Any questions, sir? Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Another great report. Always good news. So we'll move on to our presentation tonight, and Ben.
All right, thank you. We have been partnering with MASB, and they are here to talk about the latter stages of this project with our strategic plan. We have Greg Janicki and Debbie Stair, and they have been great to work with, and they're going to work their way through our process, and I believe you have a presentation in front of you, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to Debbie. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everybody. It's great for both of us to be back again today with you. And so in your folders, you have 3 documents. 2 of them you should have already seen. The ones on the left came to you in electronic form to get a chance to look at over the weekend. And then on the right-hand side is the presentation for this evening. So I'm going to sort of kick us off and then turn it over to Greg for some information. But I have to say first, it is clearly fun to learn here. Like, that's one of the best parts about going out to districts and doing this, you know, the presentation work, is that you get to see highlights and student recognitions. And, I mean, that's a lot of different things. And every one of them was just so engaging. So I just have to say that. All right, so let's get us started. Well, it says, oh, there we go. Oh, I don't want to go too far. All right, so can you believe it? 9 months from when I first came out to talk to you, right? And we knew there was going to be a pause there where we were working on some other projects before we would start yours. But here we are 9 months later. So we were here in July making the presentation and asking for your approval of the process. And then, you know, that data collection and stakeholder input took place over the months of October through January, because we had a little bit of a pause in there as well, just to kind of let people sort of recollect after an unfortunate incident that was so near to you. And then we were back in February to do your retreat. And we also did the implementation meeting in February, and then here we are this evening. So, you know, one of the things we talked about initially, early on in this, was that you really wanted to make sure we got that stakeholder input, right? That was important to you, that you know, all of your various constituencies had a voice in this process, so that they also felt like it was their plan. And, you know, we said it at the retreat, 931 responses is a great amount of response. That doesn't happen very often in districts, and so I think that really says a lot about your community and their wish, right, to be involved in some aspect of it. And so, really, I think we've probably only ever had maybe 3 other districts that have gotten higher than that in their response rate. So something definitely to be proud of. So we came together at the retreat. Remember in the morning, I told you it was going to be a bit of exhaustion and exhilaration at the end of the day, and I think most people agreed that that is exactly what happened. We worked hard. but we had some fun doing it as well, and we had some great food. Actually, both days, that day, and then, of course, we had Scott's Pizzas back for the implementation meeting. But, just a lot of engaged folks. You had such a well-rounded group of participants that day, and they just really stayed engaged all day long. And sometimes that doesn't happen either. Oftentimes we see, people sort of peel off, at points throughout the day, and boy, everybody was just in it all the way through, working hard. And so I think that says a lot as well. So here's a list of your participants. And so we had 33 people the day of the retreat, and then you'll notice that we've added a few more in there. So if there's a single asterisk, they actually participated in the retreat and the implementation meeting. And then if there's a double asterisk, then they were only a part of the implementation meeting. I want to give Ben a lot of credit for really sort of adding to that group, right? Because we had a number of folks, I think we had 11 people who were added to the process in the implementation work, right? So again, we're broadening that base of people who feel like they had a really strong part to play. And I don't see that very often either. And so I think that was, a nice piece to the work that we did. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Greg.
Thanks, Debbie. Good to see you all again. I had the pleasure of reviewing those 900 some odd input data points. So you'll see through the mission and the vision, there was one particular term that continued to show up, and it appeared in final form in both your mission and your vision statement, which is this idea of a dragon. And it was fascinating during the retreat to see how that bubbled up to be and mean more than just students, more than just students and staff, more than just students, staff, and admin, but the entire Lake Orion community. And it was fun to watch that, as Debbie noted, kind of the engagement that we saw during the retreat really brought forth what we believe is two statements that are really quite representative of what your school district is. So empowering the dragon community to achieve excellence as your mission statement, and then the vision, empowered dragons experiencing joy and success. I even commented to some individuals, if you go back maybe 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, there would not be a vision statement for a school district that would include the word joy. But you all came to that, and when that word popped up in that session, everyone immediately said, that actually captures what we want. And that's the kind of work that's really fulfilling to see when it manifests through a retreat. The belief statements came to the retreat with these fairly well formed, so these should be somewhat familiar. And again, these kind of operate as the framework or the guardrails for your school district. The preparing dragons in a collaborative of students, staff, families, and community. We believe we have a responsibility to provide a safe, welcoming, equitable learning environment where all individuals are respected and valued. We believe in fostering an environment that cultivate each individual's maximum potential. We believe in character development is integral part of education, and we believe in a dynamic, innovative approach to educating dragons. I read those intentionally because after hearing that brief presentation a moment ago, you can see how those beliefs live in the day-to-day work that's done in the district. And so it's, again, great to see how these are not just words that sit on a document, but are lived each and every day by evidence of what we just heard a few minutes ago. The goal statements were designed to fall into 5 categories, and I'll go through them, not in a lot of detail. You have them in your packet, and I imagine there'll be some questions as we finish up here, and we'll be able to go back to those in a little bit more detail. But these were the goal statements that represent, if you want to think about what success looks like in each of the categories of your particular school district. And so I'll show you here how each one of these fall into the categories. The implementation workshop was where we took those goal statements that came out of the retreat and began to build implementation, action, and accountability statements for how those goal statements will come to life over the next 12 months, the next year, 2 years, and 5 years. And so the first goal area, that statement in academic programs, Lake Orion Community Schools will increase opportunities and flexibility for all dragons. You think of this goal area again as the target for what particular objectives will be identified over the next 12 months, and then moving forward that support this particular goal area. In this case, from the implementation meeting, these 3 objectives were identified by the team as being the most important to achieve over the next 12 months. Increasing the number of enrichment opportunities for elementary and middle schools, increase the number of flexible scheduling options for high school students, and increase the number of community partnerships, and expand various college and career prep advisory groups. So those were the main priorities that, again, align with the goal area that then also feed up to your mission and vision. Again, this idea of full alignment. Goal area 2, learning environment and culture. This was a goal statement that came out of the retreat a little bit in 90% formed way. So there was a little bit of work that was done in the implementation workshop to finalize this statement. And you came up with this statement: Lake Orion schools will provide a learning environment where all students and staff feel supported, honored, and respected. A lot of time and effort and thought went into deliberating over what is a goal that will represent the learning environment and culture that Lake Orion wants to represent. And then under that, the priority objectives: all schools implement social and emotional learning, commitment to review current DEI framework, structures and leadership, and support staff mental health needs.
Oh, I forgot to spell that out.
Oh, yeah, you were going to make that.
I changed it in the other 2, I missed it in that one.
The next goal area 3, communication and community engagement, the goal statement that came out of the retreat and the implementation meeting. Lake Orion Community Schools will enhance district communication and increase community engagement in schools. That to be achieved through these 2 focus priorities: expand opportunities and participation in adult enrichment programs, and expand community business partnerships. Goal area number 4, personnel and leadership. The goal statement developed there: Lake Orion Community Schools will attract, retain, and value exceptional staff. Again, another statement that went through a lot of conversation both at the retreat and at the implementation meeting. The priority objectives that fell out of that in the implementation meeting are: expand community recruitment opportunities, successfully negotiate expiring bargaining agreements with responsibility, and establish comprehensive district-wide staff recognition. And then the final goal area 5, operations. The goal statement there: Lake Orion Community Schools will maintain and enhance operations and facilities. The priority objectives that align with this: plan for millage renewal, plan for sinking fund renewal, identify and seek alternative revenue sources, and manage bond projects schedule. Is that a?
Yeah, that's another one that somehow it must have sent a different version than the final version, which you have in your packet. You'll notice that the first bullet point under that in your packet says plan for non-homestead operating millage renewal. We wanted to make that clear exactly what that was, but for some reason, the system didn't save it to that PowerPoint.
And these, each of these objectives, and I think it's important that Debbie mentioned that, because each of these objectives during the implementation meeting were very detailed action items for each quarter that Mr. Kirby and his team will be held accountable, and the team to achieve, to ensure that there are milestones that these items actually get achieved during this 12-month window. So as I'd like to say, implementation is where great strategy goes to thrive, poor strategy goes to die. We're hoping that implementation will be the area where you guys really succeed over the next 12 months. I think that is mine. I'll turn it back over to Debbie.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just a reminder, I know I said this at the very beginning of the process, and I mentioned it at the retreat, but as a reminder, so what we're asking the board to formally approve is the mission statement, the vision statement, your belief statements, and the goal statements. Now, you've been given those priority objectives for informational purposes so that you can see the beginnings of the work. And I know the team has already done much more work than that, but we want to just be able to share those priority objectives so you get a sense of the kind of things that you can be looking to see more information on in the future. But again, you're only going to be approving those 4 components. And then I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about some of the things that we know really make a difference in helping a plan move forward and keeping it alive, making sure that it's not that project that sits on a shelf someplace. So the first one, and we started some of this work, but there's much more of this work that has to be done, is to align the strategic plan to your school improvement, now known as MyKIP, right? And so we did very small pieces of it, things like, and some of you are familiar with parts of it and others maybe not so much, but things like an if-then statement. And, just a few components like that. But there will be much more work that has to be done to integrate those 2 pieces. But definitely that is something that will help your staff and help keep you all focused, right, on one thing, not 2 separate processes. And that's the ultimate goal, is that you're all focused, in a certain area to move the district forward. The second one, you're probably in the midst of budget right now. And so it's going to be important to align your strategic planning priorities to the budget for next year, because that's how the board shows one of the ways they support the work of the strategic plan is in making sure that the resources are there for those objectives that have been identified as being, key things to do next year. The next one would be developing and implementing a reporting or board monitoring calendar. So there's lots of ways, and we've talked about some of them at the implementation meeting briefly, but there's lots of ways the board can continue to, get updates around the progress made. And honestly, that is the board's most important role in this whole process, right, is monitoring the progress. You have to do it anyway for superintendent evaluation, mandatory component, but that really is the work of the board, making sure this plan moves. And so I'm going to encourage the board to work with the superintendent to really come up with what process works best for us, because there are different ways to do it. I know many boards choose a quarterly update model where you get an update on each of those things. Sometimes it fits very nicely along with those checkpoints with the superintendent's evaluation so that it keeps those things tied together. Other boards choose other things, directly relating agenda items to components of the strategic plan. Sometimes it's a different kind of calendar where you get an in-depth update on, say, goal area number 1 in January and July. And then in months, February and August, you would work more closely with goal 2, something along those lines. But it's very district-specific what works well for you, right? And so Ben's going to come back to you with a recommendation about what he thinks is, the best monitoring calendar. And then you're going to have an opportunity to engage in that dialogue around what the final one looks like. I'm also going to encourage you at the same time, notice it says not just board monitoring, but also reporting. It's going to be critical to report out to others the process and the progress, right? And you'll see that next point is about an internal and external communications plan. You've engaged the community in this process multiple times now, some folks. And it's going to be critical for you to continue to inform them about the work they did and the difference it made, right? They want to know that a process that was started is going to have legs and is going to keep moving forward over the life of this plan. So part of that monitoring for you is also making sure that we're reporting out to the community on a regular basis. And again, looks a little different for each district, but a really important part of the process. Developing and implementing action plans for each identified objective. We did a little bit of that at the implementation meeting, just to sort of show some samples so that people understood how to take this great big plan and continue to break it down into more manageable pieces. And so when you keep doing that work in 90-day increments, which is what we suggest, it helps keep you on track. There's always going to be some things that kind of take a little longer or get done early, but having those regular checkpoints where you're deeply engaging and breaking it down again helps to keep it moving forward. I'm also going to suggest that you look for opportunities to continue to involve your stakeholders. Now, I'm not saying, form committees for a committee's sake, right, just to keep them engaged. But where there's a real need for some additional work, keeping some of these folks engaged and bringing new people into the process will help you to expand that group of ambassadors who feel like they have a stake and a responsibility in helping this plan move forward. So just looking for those opportunities when it makes sense, again, to engage the ones who have already been in it, but to also look for opportunities to bring new folks to the table and encourage them to be a part of the success. And then last but not least, we really suggest that you think about scheduling a one-year renewal. And that looks, again, different in different districts. And as you move down the road, we can talk about what some of those different options look like. Sometimes it's bringing the whole team back together. Sometimes it's bringing a smaller group. There's not just one way to do it. It's kind of a continuum of options. But it sort of helps, again, keeping it front and center for everybody, sort of reporting out what we've accomplished for the year and where do we want to head next year, so that we're continuing to make this a living, breathing plan. So with that, Greg and I both just want to say how, we really appreciate the opportunity to have been involved in your group. I know Greg talked many times with me on the phone about, the engagement, even from the input sessions that he held. And again, we just appreciate the opportunity to have been a part of this, and we look forward to watching it move forward and for you to work on achieving that vision. So with that, we are certainly open to any questions you might have this evening.
It might be helpful to go back to that slide that we had, the 4 areas that we're talking about at this point in time.
Okay.
Just to refocus if people have any questions regarding those 4 areas.
Is this the slide again?
This slide, correct. Because that's what we're focused on at this moment in time. The objectives are things that will come forward later as the plan is developed.
This is a good time to have discussion. It is not on the agenda for approval tonight. It will be on future when we're ready, but we want to make sure that if there's any, questions or you want to surface anything, that this is a great time to do that. If you want to have discussion amongst our board and our team here.
So I just want to thank you, Debbie and Greg, for being here and for the work that you led our district through. And I appreciate the community's involvement and everybody that's had a stake in this. It's a lot of work and that went into this, and I appreciate it all very, very much. I have a question for my fellow board members on this, and it's when you look at the goals, are you content with the level of rigor presented?
What do you mean by rigor, Brigade? That's a pretty broad term.
Is it a high enough standard?
It could always be higher, but I think it's a good standard at this point. Thank you.
I think it was purposeful to leave them broader so that, the word that comes to mind is aspirational, that if you're going to increase opportunities and flexibility for all dragons, the sky's the limit. So I appreciated, it seemed like it was more of a deliberate attempt to not be so specific because it allows for limitless, chances to grow.
And it seems like during the retreat, we did get very specific, and then we had to kind of back off just so, we didn't have a paragraph for each one. So I'm very happy with the way this came out. I think it's awesome.
I think the actual, the meat and the work plan, when we put that together and show that, and it will demonstrate the, as Birgit put it, the rigor and the work. And I think it's really important to understand, these are some of these are the goals for our strategic plan, but there's a lot of different work that will be going on, and the high expectations for academic achievement and scholarship and everything will continue to drive forward, even though it may not be mentioned specifically in a respective goal area.
Birgit, do you think that with a high level of rigor and specific focus in the objectives, that these goals would be where we need to be, given that the work plan, the objectives would reflect how strenuous our approach would be?
I suppose that's something that's, we lean on Ben for, and I know Susan had something to say, but it is our responsibility, and you alluded to it, that when we go through this is a big deal for us to approve this. We've waited a long time to redo this, and I'm just taking this extremely seriously, and I want to make sure that we're good with it, because a lot rides on this for us in the evaluation process, and that goes to the goal statements. So that's where my head is wrapped around on this, and I just wanted to kind of open that door to have a discussion, because I think we owe it to ourselves in the district to do that. And I'm perfectly fine if we land on it, that this is awesome and we're good with it. I just want to have a discussion, because we haven't had that opportunity, the 7 of us together with this, right? This is our first seeing of this together. So Susan, I'm sorry, I didn't want to
And
interrupt.
that's why we aren't taking action on it tonight.
I appreciate
To give us
that.
that opportunity to have that conversation and to think on it after we leave even, if there's something that jumps out at us that we can have that window of opportunity to talk about it. Susan, did you want to add?
I was actually going to suggest, this is a great idea to bring this slide up, but I was going to suggest we pull up slide 4 from the board packet, because I believe it's slide 4. That actually gives you the 5 areas, gives you the goal statement in each area. I think it's 1.
right.
It is board packet, so it's this.
I don't have, this isn't my laptop, so, but I did put that.
It's this one. that they're
Oh,
talking
the 2-page.
I didn't want that file because I found it.
It's this one.
Yeah, so the 2-page document that's in your folder.
Yeah, and the second page actually gets into a little bit more detail of the actual goals. So maybe looking at
a good
that
summary
would
of
be a good place for us to kind of chat about. When you say rigor, for example, Birgit, something that I go immediately to is the personnel and leadership. The goal statement there for me is kind of a minimum. That is something that we have to do no matter what. We should always be looking to attract, retain, and value our exceptional staff. So when you say, is that rigorous enough, to me, perhaps we could have gone a bit further with that, because I think that's a bare minimum we should be doing. As an example, when you ask me.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, and I want, if I might, or just sort of add something to the conversation in that there will definitely be smart components that you're going to be looking at as the plan moves forward. And so even in our sample action plan that we did the day of the implementation workshop, we talked about the importance of identifying baseline measurements so that you have those moving forward, so they can be measured, getting much more specific. All of those things, I think you will see in short time as the team has an opportunity to continue to develop it. Because until the board approves those main components, some of that work sort of, we start it and they do some more. And I know that they met after we met with them as well to continue down that path. And now it's kind of let's get the plan approved and then we'll continue to really dig deeper and deeper. And so I think you'll see many more of those specifics that I think you're looking for. As far as the goal statement, yeah, we all should expect that we do that. I think what will be important are those objectives that are identified each year, right? The things that go a little bit over and beyond what you typically expect to see.
Agreed, but I view the goal as your bar, right? And do we want to set the bar at average, or are we looking to set the bar at above average in Lake Orion? So to me, that's what the goal is.
And that kind of summarizes where I was feeling like I don't want us to settle for a good plan. I want us to be great, right? That's where I vision it. And if we're good with this, that's I'm just asking and throwing it out there because I appreciate your input, Susan.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I was just going to recognize that, a lot of this was created based on our Saturday retreat and where the feedback led us to. And how these things look will be recognized more through the work plan than they will actually the goal. And I have in my mind the knowledge of what we've been doing since our implementation plan that we meeting that we had with our implementation group and some of the action steps. We did break things up and we actually called them terms because we went to 5 instead of quarters and whatnot. But a lot of like these ends, we don't even know, and I think Jake spoke to it a little bit, what it's going to look like. And so part of what we will be doing is pushing ourselves to get beyond where we are today. So I guess I would share that with you. I know it's maybe not identified in the specific goal statement, and you're maybe typically used to having, the measurable piece in that goal. But I would just offer that the actual work piece that we will be doing will get us beyond where we're at today. And our team will be going to work once we recognize that this is where we want to go as a district.
Susan, are you okay with that?
I mean, I think the whole board needs to be okay with it, and the
Well, I
community.
mean, just, I'm just going back to what your thoughts were. Can you live with this as the starting point for developing a work plan that's aggressive and that exceeds the standard?
To me, I appreciate, again, all the work that went into it, and I agree, Ben, that a lot of this came out of our Saturday workshop. It was a great day. When we're approving it and putting it out there, for those people who weren't part of that, I want them to be able to click on the link and go to our vision and mission page and say, yes, we are really striving to be the best, one of the best districts in the state, if not the country. And I don't know if I read that, not having been part of the entire process, if I would gain that from just reading this goal statement as it's written right now. So that's where I kind of wanted to open up the discussion and make sure we're all chatting about it. And if we're saying that it's going to come out of the objectives and we'll be able to define a little bit more tangibility, if you will, in those objectives, then sure, that would be great. But right now, looking at it, I want to make sure we're setting that bar at the right level for Lake Orion.
What would that goal statement look like that would make you meet what, when you open it up, that it would be like popping out to you that we are looking to be one of the best in the country, as you put it?
I hadn't thought of it like that, Ben, yet, but, to me, again, that goal statement specifically around personnel and leadership, it is the bare minimum that we're valuing our exceptional staff, right? we should always do that. So what can we do above and beyond the minimum? What are the top districts doing to value exceptional staff and retain exceptional staff?
Right, what I would offer to you, just to provide some clarity with that. So with this particular group, there was different terms, and one of the, I can't remember which term, I think it's very early on, we're looking at districts in our area, across the state, across the country, what are they doing differently than what we're doing? And that will help build this particular goal area. So I do appreciate what you're saying. That helped me better understand. But that is part of what we will be doing, is looking at what other districts are doing. Staffing right now is a challenge for many. I have seen a lot of good things that we are doing. There are good things that other districts are doing, and that'll be our challenge, is to get better than where we're at today. And also remember, when we look at our strengths that came out in the strategic plan, staffing was a strength, and where our staff was compensation-wise was a strength. So we are at a pretty high bar to start with, and so our challenge is going to be to get even better, and to get even stronger, and to be more cohesive and supportive, and that's our everyday task.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that clarity.
I guess a question for Ben and a comment as well. I mean, I kind of agree on both sides. Like Susan, I completely appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate Jake as well, saying, you know, this is kind of where we're starting, and it means it's limitless. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to the implementation and it coming back to us on a pretty regular basis, right, to make sure we are doing this. So Ben had, and you might be speaking on this soon, have you given thought as to what you're reporting? You know, I mean, they mentioned maybe quarterly, or have you given thought on that, so we can, you know, kind of monitor where we're going with it and whatnot?
Yeah, and actually next week when we meet in our small groups, I was intending to have some discussion to see what your needs were as far as, excuse me, reporting out. Debbie talked about some different samples and whatnot, and I guess the important piece that I'm going to need to hear from you is, do you want more depth on a specific goal regularly, or do you want, quarterly, we're doing all of them, or do you want each month focus on, a different goal? So we'll develop based on what your needs are going to be. Each of you has some thoughts around it probably, or will have thoughts by that point in time, but that's what my intentions are, to have that conversation with you next week.
Okay, yeah, and because I think that's going to be important to, to all of us.
Absolutely.
Getting that feedback and just kind of, keeping the process moving, because like you said, we don't want this to just, we've done all this and then, oh, okay, and that's it. We never speak of it again, and.
Does that work for
Yeah,
you, that
yeah,
approach?
perfect. Yep,
Okay,
thank you.
Good.
Yeah, if I could
Other
just-
questions?
Oh, I was going to say, if I can just add one piece to what we saw the day of the implementation meeting. I mean, we work with districts across the state, right? And your implementation team really dug deep already. Like, I mean, just in that first day, they really had some very concrete thoughts about exactly those high standards that they know this district expects, right? And, then I saw some of the work that came back as a result of their second meeting after we were here. And so, I really want to say, I have high levels of trust that this team is going to do the tough work and bring it back to you, to make you feel comfortable with those specifics, right? And those measurables, just from what we saw.
Right.
Thank you.
And also, as you process through it, and I know Debbie said it, this is a working document. So, we may go through a year or two and we may accomplish a goal, or we may recognize we need to do something further. And we now have gone through this process. We have stakeholder input. Maybe we get more. So just keep that in mind too, that, maybe in a year or two, we may be looking to expand or do some things differently. So just keep that in mind.
Well, thanks, man. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was trying not to say much of anything because I did not have the privilege of being there, obviously, Greg and Debbie, and I thank you for your continuing input. But it is a moving document. It's been moving for a very long time. Well, in the past, and hopefully it'll continue moving. It, like a corporation, lives forever. And this will continue to move, so I'm not comfortable with it starts here and finishes there. A lot of these matters that we've discussed before, Jim, I think you would agree, from years ago. And we take from the past, we learn from the past, we learn from our mistakes. We hope to get better and continue to get better. And keeping an open mind and everything, but just making it clear that my thought process is I'm not comfortable, this is it, and this is the end point. It is a moving document, quote unquote, what you said, Ben, but it's been moving for a very long time. And that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We talked about the first goal statement. Are there any other thoughts on the remaining goal statements that we should bring forward right now?
Do you think it would be wise to allow the board then to further digest this and bring back anything else, or give Ben a heads up prior to the next meeting for any further discussion?
Yeah, as far as process, I think it would be really important. Like I said, we meet next week in our regular scheduled groups. That'll be an agenda item. We can talk further about that, and certainly if there's some things that you have specifically. Again, we're not in a hurry to approve this, but once we approve it, then that will allow us to actually start to take actions, put our teams together, and because each of us has a different responsibility in these different buckets. But again, we're not in a hurry. I'm in a position where I want everybody to have ownership, and that we move forward together and not wondering about any component of it.
Awesome.
So maybe our next step would be for everyone to take a look at this, sleep on it, be prepared to talk further about it when you meet with Ben in small groups next week. And we want to move it along, but we don't want to rush. And so let's be thoughtful about what we bring forward to Ben next week. If you've got concerns, or if you've got suggestions, or you've got a different perspective than what we have on here, and it's worthy of conversation in those small meetings, I'd ask you to really focus on bringing those forward. And let's surface those so we can have a fuller discussion on it before we put the stamp of approval on it. This should be a document that we're all comfortable with and enthusiastic about. And to do that, I think we need to get feedback from everybody if they have thoughts or concerns or suggestions. Is that fair?
If I could say one thing.
Sure.
I think the other thing that needs to be mentioned is that a lot of work was done that day with a lot of stakeholders.
Yep.
And that does need to be, I think, considered, that it is not something that is drastically changed, because we did ask for the community to come together, and we did do that day. And there were words that were, changed and tweaked, and a lot of work and a lot of thought went into what is before you this evening. And I just think that we need to be cautious about the intent behind it. And it really does come down to, the rigor is in the work plan. And that is where you should see the rigor, I think, come out. And as has been in the past, this district has never rested on its laurels. We've always strived to be better and be the best that we can be. And I would expect no different in this plan.
In our work plans, and we just have to reflect on the last year, the work plans that we've had have been filled with that rigor, and have also been adapting to the circumstances that have been pretty challenging. And I would expect the same thing from the work plans that would be brought forward on this. However, that being said, the board is going to be the monitoring body, and they have to be comfortable with the final document. And so let's have that conversation without a plan for restructuring this or making wholesale changes, but if we can fine tune it so it's reflective of what we should be doing moving forward, certainly those thoughts and ideas should be brought forward. Okay.
I don't think anyone's discounting the community in this, trust me. We're just taking this very seriously.
Absolutely. And one final thing while we do go back and digest these and look at these. I mean, I look at these 5 buckets, if you will, as our guiding stars, right? And we should be able to point to those for the next 5 years, because this is a 5-year plan, to say all of our decisions we're making are aligned with these goals. And what we're doing when we make the choices to spend dollars, to make changes to programs, they address these goals, and they're what is driving our community forward. So as we review these, just please keep that in mind. This is a very important plan, and it shouldn't just be put on a shelf or on a website. It needs to guide our decisions and what we do in the district.
Yeah, and absolutely, those guideposts are for everyone, right?
Yes.
At every level.
Yes.
Asking those same questions.
Yes.
Is the decision I'm about to make going to move us further towards that vision and achieving those goals or not? And if not, then why?
Right.
Like,
And
right?
to me, that's why it's very important that we're setting those goals at the right level, because when you're making those decisions to go towards a goal, is it the right goal? Is it the right rigor, to use Birgit's language, I guess, rigor?
And I appreciate the thoughtful approach by this group, because we certainly could have come in here and just said, yeah, go with it, but we didn't. And so I'd ask you to take some time, think on it. If you have something that jumps out at you that you really think is worthy of further conversation, next week when you meet with Ben, share it with him and the board members who are in that group, and we will get to a conclusion, I think, that will be satisfactory to everybody.
I would also suggest, and I don't know, Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, you have all of the notes from that full day and all of the details, so we could reference back to the community work
Well,
very
you-
easily,
You
correct?
have all the final work product as part of the summary.
Correct,
The
but
full summary.
you have the
I do
backup.
not keep all of the various versions of every
Okay.
statement once we
No, of
settle.
course not, but
But you have all the work products, so that,
Okay.
because, and we provide that specifically for you because it is a living, breathing document. And we want to make sure that we take all of that good thinking that was there that day and gets moved forward as you accomplish certain objectives, taking another look at, here's some other things that were identified, do they fit now? Right? Because when we talked about the objectives for this first year, it was sort of in reference to what's most important, because it needs time, and so we need to start it now. And then the other thing we looked at was what's just, it can't wait, right? It has to be addressed now, no matter how short a term it might be. So those were the sort of 2 criteria we talked about as we helped determine what those first-year objectives are.
great.
Great. Thank you all for your input on this, and we'll look forward to further discussion and approval. And Ben?
Well, again, just thank you for the discussion, and, next week when we meet, we'll be able to, talk further, and all these things that we said today, I think are going to be important as we move forward, so thank you.
Okay, again,
you.
thank you very much.
Debbie
Thank
and
you
Greg.
both very much. We appreciate it. All right, a lot of good work there, and more good work to come. So we will move on. And we have no public participation this evening. So we'll move to the superintendent's update, and Ben, please.
All right, thank you. My section will be relatively brief tonight because we just took care of a lot of it with the strategic planning update. I wanted to have some further discussion to see, what types of things were on your mind and what your thoughts were as we move forward. But again, just reiterate the most important part is over the next couple of weeks, let's make sure that we continue to look at this and talk about the things that are there and what they mean. As far as legislative update, there hasn't been a whole lot of work going on. They've been on their breaks as well, and so there hasn't been a whole lot of action. The one thing I did want to bring to your attention under that is that MASB is holding their behind-the-scenes capital event on Wednesday, May 4th. That's an opportunity for you. It starts in the morning. It's a 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Event, and it allows you an opportunity to go to Lansing and actually talk with the legislators and people that help form budgets and whatnot. So again, May 4th, 8 to 1, but that is something that you guys are getting your MASB updates. So if it's something you're interested in, I would encourage you to go to that. It's a part of a process that would be good learning for you, so. And then as far as the COVID update, if Julie, can you put that up? I guess I should ask, does anybody have any questions about legislative update or strategic plan update?
I just had a joke, I won't say it.
Probably wasn't worth repeating.
I was going to say, is it Star Wars themed?
Because it's on May the
Oh.
4th.
Because it's May the 4th?
Yes, aren't you funny?
Come
Yeah,
on.
That is good. Yeah, so
You can show up in your Darth Vader outfit if you'd like.
Turn his microphone off, please.
that is actually going to be Mr. Barnett's State of the Township Day, and that is his theme. I don't know if that's a secret or not, but the secret's out, I guess, if it is. But, so yeah, Scott, you make sure that you get that Darth Vader theme and get dressed up and go to his event, so.
I already got it.
All right. Can't wait. All right, so as far as the COVID update, again, we've had a number of meetings over the last week, and we haven't had to talk about COVID, and it's just been really good for us mentally as school personnel and leaders, and so I did want to recognize that because it kind of feels good to talk about school stuff. But basically, it's been staying very, very steady. The last two, data points, they're in red, but they're very close. So you can see, we're in a really good spot. The current variant is supposed to be more contagious, less symptomatic or less symptoms. But when we meet with the health departments, Julie, go ahead and move on to the next page. But when I meet with the health department, they're at a very calm spot. They aren't concerned about, us congregating with students, aren't making any kind of recommendations at this point. They continue to watch hospital capacity is what the new benchmark is that they're watching, and they, whether they realize this or not, they actually do monitoring of sewage plants and things that are happening there, and that helps inform things. I don't really want to know a lot about that process, but they look at those two data points, and those are informing their work moving forward. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that, and Mark had mentioned and Rick elaborated on our health and wellness page on the website, but that's where we've put all of our COVID information, just trying to synthesize things and help things be more available to our community. So, any questions at all? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move ahead to the Board Self-Assessment Committee report, and Birgit, please.
Yes, the Board Self-Assessment Committee met in March on Friday, the 25th, and our job was to work on the goals that we had discussed in our workshop and to formulate those into something presentable, and those are in your packet tonight. Those are for our review. It's a first reading. We will vote on them at our next meeting. So just wanted to go over those briefly with you. I won't read them in detail necessarily unless there's discussion, but I did want to open the door up for that to see what you all thought, how you all felt about that. The one I wanted to give you a little bit more information on was number 2. The Board of Education will engage in professional development. And the bullet points below that, each workshop will include 1 hour of PD from ASB. Board members are encouraged to pursue their own courses of PD. And new members are encouraged to take MASB's CBA 101, Fundamentals of School Board Service, within their first 6 months. We had kicked around the idea of requiring that, and so we came just shy of it because we weren't sure how you all felt about it. It's a good baseline. MASB has been offering it for free. It can be taken online. It doesn't even need to be in person necessarily, although I will say MASB classes are always better in person because of the connection you make and networking with people across the state. So I just wanted to put that out there as one of the questions that Danielle and I had discussed and talked about presenting. We're okay with encouragement at this point, but we would love the board to entertain making some of that a requirement. Thoughts?
Your thoughts?
Do we have the authority to require people who were our peers, who were voted by the community, to do such a thing.
You know the answer to that, Jake. But when we come on to the board, I mean, seriously, we don't. We can't make people do
That's the
something they
point,
don't.
and I would not want to put
Right,
in our
because I would say or
goals.
what, right?
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. We either want to discuss excellence
Yeah.
as a board, or we don't. And if we want to encourage excellence in our governance, and our overriding goal is to improve our governance, one of the best ways we can build trust in one another is to know that we each have each other's backs, and we know a little bit about what we're doing up here. And so, yep, somebody could come in and not do it, and we really don't have a recourse. But I would like to think that people that come onto the board would be willing to do minimal professional development.
That's why I like the word encouraged, because if we were to change it to required, then you get into that situation, but we can't require you to do it, but we can encourage you
We can
repeatedly.
strongly encourage.
Strongly
We
encourage.
we can continually encourage everybody to lift themselves up and lift each other up, but that was my only point, is to change that word to required. We're
Okay.
just setting ourselves up for an awkward situation.
Well, and I will share with you, Berger and I discussed this, when we were at the annual leadership conference. I couldn't tell you which boards they were, but there were a couple of boards that said, you can't hold an officer position unless you take, and theirs was all the hundreds. Now, we weren't comfortable, obviously, with going that far, but that's kind of, where this came from, was just saying, there is obviously, we've all taken, some level of the CBAs, and there's a lot of value in all of it, and Jake and I talked about it, just, if it's a 3-hour class, you might not get all three valuable, like, all 3 hours might not be insanely, but you always walk away with something valuable, and, that's why I think we kind of landed, like Birgit said, on that, because, and that's just, the 101 is just the foundation. It's just kind of learning what you're supposed to be doing, I mean, it's a whole new world up here, and just to even have the basics of it. I mean, I took it before January 1st. I did it when we were still, completely on Zoom. So just to even have a clue of what I was facing when I got up here was actually really helpful. So, but I completely appreciate your point too, that we can't say you have to do it because we don't really have a recourse. So, but how do you feel about strongly encourage?
Well, I mean, I think you and I are the two newest, I know we are the two newest members, and I also took it, and I felt it was very helpful, and I actually felt like it was a requirement myself, personally. So I think anyone who takes the time to run for the office will probably feel the same way you and I did. I felt like I needed to do that, regardless of your background, because it's a good first step into the seat. So, I mean, I agree with Jake. I feel like it's hard to put required because we really can't do anything. So what if someone doesn't do it? But I think strongly encouraged, and I think anyone who does run for an office would find that helpful
Oh,
to
absolutely.
take.
And Birgit, correct me, the 1 hour, just so everyone understands, the 1 hour of PD is something MASB provides us with anyway, so that's not.
We would be free. Once you go
right.
above an hour, then they start charging.
Okay, so I
you
just
can get
wanted
1
to
hour
put that out
free.
there, that we, it's a resource that's already there, so we might as well be, using this resource that
Absolutely.
we have.
I wanted to better understand that one if I could. So there's 1 hour free annually, correct?
I don't know that there's a limitation on it.
Okay, so it's just 1 hour free. So will the board be determining what that is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We will fill you in with our requests, and we can even be the ones that put it in if you want. We've utilized this with OCSBA, with,
I have no problem with it.
dinner
I just
meetings.
I'm just trying to figure out.
and we've done it
just
more than
thinking
once
through it,
this year,
yeah.
so I know it.
Yeah,
They
no, that
didn't go,
makes
hey,
sense.
sorry.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's a good point, that we as a board, if we're gonna take this seriously, that we need to have that challenge to ourselves. Hey, we've got a workshop meeting coming up in September, so sometime June, July, we gotta kick that thought off to say, hey, what's our pressing need?
I think
to-
we look at our
Yeah.
self-assessment and go with the topic
Oh,
there. and-
understood, but then but it comes in here, the committee,
Yes.
the self-assessment committee brings it in and said, hey, when we look at what we need to do, but then it's a lot like what we talked about with strategic plan, that unless you're going back to it and considering it, then these goals just
Or
sit
nothing,
there,
right.
they just sit there. But if we're challenging ourselves to review these and say, hey, this is what we're aspiring to be, then it all comes together.
That's the plan. And then if the third goal the focus is on what we agreed on with increasing our advocacy with the state legislature. And as you see those bullet points below there, it's utilizing the government relations representative to provide reports from OCSBA each month. That's not to rain on Ben's parade at all with a legislative update. It's just to do what we're already asking ourselves to do and reporting it back and encouraging us to be more proactive in that, as that's what our intent was. So we decided to add it that way. How do you guys feel about that? Are you in favor of that?
I like it.
Yeah, like you said, as long as it's coordinated with what Ben does so that we're not tripping over each other, but yeah,
I
definitely.
have found my updates to be different than his, and I think it will be actually a cool balance.
Sure.
But I'm always happy to share with you or you go first and then I adjust accordingly, you know?
I'm open with you doing it, that's fine. Yeah, we'll work through it, that's certainly fine. And, you know, one of the things as we move forward, you know, and we have, and I guess I just would ask you guys as you look at this, your board goals, you want to grow, and we've talked a lot about that this year, but you also want to support the strategic plan goals too, so keep that in mind as you know, approve these and we work through the years together, that your work here as a board should also support the strategic plan and your work and your parts in the strategic plan too, so.
I would think that everything that we have in here would support the
I'm
strategic plan.
not saying it
and
doesn't,
that-
I just was trying to parallel and put the two together.
And to go full circle with that in kind of a way, the first one is about doing the annual review of our board operating procedures, which really does need some attention at this point. So in the near future, we will be working on that, and since that falls under the board self-assessment committee, we'll start a whole new cycle, and we'll keep you abreast on all that. So the changes I have is for this, just to be in line with you, Julie, is adding the word strongly. Is that the only change I have from my fellow board members? Did I miss anything?
The other question I would have is just to what you just said about number one, that it's under the self-assessment committee. I would also think it falls within the policy and procedures committee, so maybe they can work together on that.
So that's where it originated, and it was suggested it should go to the board self-assessment committee.
Because
you
this
will
is our
note-
policy homework.
If you will note that we're still going to rely on every committee and administrators
It'd be
and
fun.
as they have specialty areas, right? To know, I can't vouch for what it goes on in the finance committee, so the finance committee will review their section, right?
Right.
And so on and so forth.
Yeah,
We're not going to
they're
take
just
it
kind
over.
of the
We're going to
overseers and
delegate
we'll all touch
some
it.
of that work out.
So each committee will, look at their board operating procedures within that and then review and,
And make sure
Summarize
you're
it
doing what you're
Exactly, and make
supposed to be
sure,
doing. or-
within our board operating procedures, with our website, honestly, that each committee is doing exactly, like, this is what we're doing. And, should that be different?
I saw a hand over there.
And if we handle it in the way that we have in the past, whenever we make revisions, regardless of what committee oversees the process, it comes back to the full board. for
Absolutely.
Adoption of those revisions.
Yes.
for approval.
Right. Yeah, this is just like a step of, once again, making sure, we're all going in the right direction together, and it's just-
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I think we'll find that as we work through the board operating procedures is going to need some updates on things that we're doing a little differently these days as opposed to a couple years ago since we've updated it.
I
So
think they're
Yeah,
due
I
for
would-
review.
I would concur.
Yeah.
There's practices that are different than the procedures, for sure.
And then you mentioned website, and I don't know if that was where you were just about to go, Ben, but that last bullet on 3, have we talked about who's going to be updating the website, how that's going to be managed? Do you have, because that is important.
Right,
Yeah.
it is. And so that was something the board would need to work out, and that it's actually going to be I see it as an outcome of things that we deem as legislative priorities, as what would be shared on that, unless Ben has a different idea. Like if we had this great legislative action committee that we would ask to help not legislate, lobby in a sense, local lobbying, grassroots efforts to make an impact with our legislators. And we haven't really taken advantage of any of that lately. And so the intent is not necessarily to re-up that, we're not suggesting that right now, but we are suggesting that we make sure that the website has as up-to-date information for people who want to seek that out and advocate for education.
Oh,
So-
I think
Right,
it's
and a lot
great-
of people
I think
really
it's-
don't even know it's there, but it
Exactly,
is, it is
exactly.
there, and
I
Mark
think
does
you might have
update that, and we'll continue.
misunderstood. I think it's a great
Yeah.
idea. I think it's wonderful.
But who, right.
But
Do we
So-
know
Do
who's
we-
going to do that, and are we going to be able to?
I know who's gonna do it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Right,
he's right over
I
there.
think the question is-
Just want to make sure you're aligned
Jeff
with what
Faber?
we're
I am not
thinking.
pointing at Jeff Faber.
But I agree with Susan, because it does say these are the board's goals,
Right.
and it's it might be the only thing in there that we're passing back to administration, saying, hey, administration, we really need your help in accomplishing.
Right.
Most of these other bullets are things that we as the board directly need to do.
Updating the website's above our pay grade, see?
Well,
And you don't want us to, Mark?
Yeah, Mark would-
And my
Mark-
technical
Mark-
expertise,
yeah,
too.
Mark
Yeah,
would
Mark, you don't
our
want us
filthy
to.
hands on his website.
Yeah.
Give me that password.
I wonder whether that should be included on this, because it's not directly a board function. It's truly a staff function, and the board is not going to be engaging in the maintenance or updating of the website.
Yeah, our goal could be less specific than this to say,
Right.
the Board of Education will
Provide guidance.
provide a method to encourage the community to, because that's really where it comes from, is when community members reach out to us, they're like, hey, you talked about this at your board meeting, or Ben mentioned this. Like, how would I let my state and that's what this is gonna be. So I think our goal is, we want to engage the community in legislative advocacy, as opposed to, I don't want to, pick at this, but I sort of with Jim, that our goal is to provide a means for the community to be able to advocate for legislation, and this is more of a how you're going to do it.
And I wonder a little bit too, and I'm not putting anybody on the spot, so you don't have to respond, but like, how active are you as board members with your legislative advocacy? So do you start there rather than telling others how to do it? Are you modeling that, and are you, actively participating in that? So I offer that as a step too.
That is why the goal reads, the Board of Education will increase their advocacy with the state legislature. That was just a sub-bullet of how to possibly accomplish that, and offer it as an.
Well, next time they call for money, we can ask them directly. All right? They keep on calling for. All right, thank you.
Mark has something.
Would this be one of you looking at the site and saying, these are the things that we want that pages to be updated? Or would you be having a discussion with Ben, and Ben's?
We would definitely do it through Ben.
Yeah.
I think it's looking at this as we talk about the government relations representative in combination with Ben's. I think it'll be a work in progress, but I think there's going to be a few things in there that jump out at us and say, hey, we should advocate, and we want to give the community the ability to advocate. Because what they'll ask about is, where do I send it? How do I phrase it? Because that's the biggest thing that people,
Right.
that you're concerned about.
Or when
is-
are they talking about it? Like, I want to go
Right.
there.
Yeah, or
Right.
I don't want to sound dumb when I send,
Right.
I'm trying to craft an email, but I don't know enough about the issue, and I don't want to send it to my state legislator and
Right.
not have it, and I'm like, oh, don't worry about that, like, you'll get your message across.
Right, and that's something, Birgit and I talked about, because obviously Birgit attends the government relations, and, she gets a level of detail that even we don't get, and, so I think adding on to Ben's report will enhance that, because, whoever our government relations representative is, they can add to it and give a level of detail that, and I kind of said it too, bringing it down to what's important. Sometimes you can read these House bills, I do it all the time, and my word, to kind of put it, and that's something we talked about, putting it into everyday language and explaining why it's important. Because I could read the 3-page document and still not understand why it's important. So, like Birgit said, this was just kind of how we as a board, get back into advocacy and, advocating for advocacy at the end of the day.
Right.
So this was just kind of our, like you said, it's a first draft, and, what's the best way we can do that, so.
Would it be safe to say that we all kind of agree that the website's not ours, and it would be good for the committee just kind of rework that a little bit to reflect the community aspect and our advocacy without coming up with a specific, like, maintaining the website.
Yeah, I
Would
think
you
that's
all be
fair.
good with that?
Yep.
Remember, we want to make all of these measurable for the board,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one we can't measure for the board. So that's where we want to see how we can change it so it is measurable for how we're doing on that. Any other questions for Bergen on this? Bergen, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm okay right now. We're good.
Great. Thank you for your work
Thank
on
you, guys.
this.
Yeah,
This
thanks.
is what we've needed for a bit. All right, so move on to student achievement, and Heidi, please.
All right, well, this week, we kicked off state testing. So out and about in a few buildings today, it was more quiet than I like. However, it is what it is, right? So we're off and running with that. In addition, the parent newsletter went out recently, and I know in our district communications that we've been putting out, we're already thinking about summer, and there's a lot of summer offerings that are out there for our students. Always, but it seems to be more this particular year. So between the district, the library, which, you know, are always heavy hitters, our camp want to have fun, there's also a lot more that we put in the parent newsletter regarding local organizations that are offering things for summer, community colleges. So again, a lot of different opportunities that I encourage parents to take a look at those and keep your kids engaged throughout the summer. Now's the time to start thinking about that, even though you would not know that by the weather, but soon, hopefully summer will be here. And then I wanted to let you know, LOEF, the Lake Orion Education Foundation, we have started to get back up and running. At the end of this week, we will be awarding mini grants to teachers. You know that in the past, LOEF has done grants that teachers can apply for, and this money goes right back into the classroom. And so this year, they're mini grants because, again, our funding is a little bit low right now as we're just getting rebounding from COVID. But I wanted to let you know that that mini grants will be awarded on behalf of the LOEF. And also, if you have not seen LOEF, the golf outing is June 21st. We are shooting for a sellout, and so we are 65% there. And so we need to get 100%, but this will again get us to awarding grants and supporting district initiatives through the LOEF. So it is an important foundation.
Heidi, in the past, like in the distant past, LOEF, when they awarded the mini grant, sometimes you would do that here. Is that something that will be brought back?
Yeah, we will more than likely get back to that, for sure.
Because that's kind of exciting.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Yep. And bond reporting. Today was a very exciting day for Blanche Sims, which I know that many of you were there, but we did have our groundbreaking. The ground had been broke previously, if you've been by there, but today was the official groundbreaking for Blanche Sims. And so that was very exciting as we look forward to building a brand-new elementary. And then soon you will be seeing plans for the design committees for Walden and Oakview for their secure entries. Should be wrapping up, I would think, within the next few weeks. And so those teams did not meet today, but they are scheduled to meet next week. Also, POs went out this week for the furniture, secondary furniture, and so we're gearing up for that. It's going to be another busy summer, but everybody's looking forward to that, so. That's in bond.
Questions for Heidi? Great day. It was a great day.
It was awesome.
Thank you, Heidi. So we'll move on to human resources, and Rick, please.
Nothing further for tonight.
All right, thank you. John, finances, please.
Good evening. On the agenda, there's 4 items, 3 bids, and then a first reading for the International Academy's fiscal '23 budget. Starting with the transportation bid award request that's on the agenda. As discussed previously, we're looking to buy out 16 existing leases on our buses, 10 general ed, 6 special ed buses, and we're going to be using some grant funding. And because of the dollar volume, there's specific criteria and compliance issues related to doing the process, and part of this is running a formal bid. So in that process, we issued a bid back on March 16. We had bids returned on the 25th. We had two replies, two proposals given. What you see in your board packet is the recommendation. We will be using funding from PA 3, Public Act 3, Section 11R funding, and then Public Act 48, Section 11T funding. So it's the recommendation that the Board of Education authorize administration to execute the bus lease buyouts as presented in the grand total amount of $1,115,442. And just as a closing thought behind the logic of this approach is it results in the district's direct long-term control of buses that we know we have experience with. They're good vehicles, so to speak, i.e. there are no lemons. And we are also at the same time reducing going forward operating expenses. So it's, in my perspective, a win-win. Additionally, there's a copier bid award proposal on deck as well. A little bit of background. We have 61 copiers covered by this proposal, and these are the big, ranging from, there are actually 4 different sizes in the whole package, but they're the big, large, high-speed copiers used throughout the buildings. Some color, some black and white, and things along those lines. So from a district fleet strategy, prior to this process, what we're requesting today, our typical process is to run an RFP for fleet replacement, but focus on a 5-year lease with a 1-year buyout. After 5 years, we buy them out and own the fleet, run it another year, maybe 2 if they're in good shape, and do the process all over again. And part of that process, when we do the all over again, is selling off the old assets through a third-party vendor approach in terms of moving those assets out. The difference here is instead of doing an RFP looking for a 5-year lease purchase agreement, we're buying them outright up front. We'll be using funding from the bond proceeds out of the technology budget. And we'll be targeting a project implementation transition over the summer. The goal is to get everything up and running before the formal start of the school year. So as the secretarial and front-end staff come in early before everything's up and running, we'll get through the training phases and have some live action at a lower volume to work out any bugs, and then go full speed when the school year starts up next year. So based on that, our request there is to have the board authorize administration to purchase the initial set of copiers, installation services, training, and support from Konica Minolta as presented in the amount of $359,050.40, and allocate an additional contingency in the amount of $35,905 for a total authorization of $394,955. Just in case there's a question about the idea behind contingency, whenever we do these processes, something always comes up. We need power at a different level at a different site because we're changing machine capacity. Maybe while we're going through the process again, we make a decision, it would be great to have a 60-second machine in such and such spot. So this gives us leeway up front to do that while we're in the whole process. And item number 3, the Walden Oakview, what's referred to as the electrical bid awards. Lake Orion Schools requested bids for electrical services to accommodate the new technology that's going in at Walden and Oakview Middle Schools and their projects as they roll forward. So the scope of this actual bid request is really just the electrical capacity for the technology needs in the 2 middle schools, plus allowances, authorizing allowances, not contingency, but allowances for things that we know happen at the same time. For example, actually, I would reference you to page, and I folded it in here for quick reference, and of course I can't find it. Page 53 in the board packet. It's one of the pages that break out the bid recommendation for it. So you'll see up front the base bid for Walden at $31,550, base bid for Oakview at $23,170. There's some $1,300 for performance bond related pieces, but then below you see a set of contingency and allowances. That title's a little misleading when it's written shorthand in the bar and board action request forms, because if you really look, the actual contingency is $5,609. The other items are referred to as allowances, just like the other big projects, meaning we know we're tearing into walls, so we need to have money set aside to patch and paint that wall. Same with the roof. If we need additional wiring or cabling, that we find some as we're going through this process that just isn't going to work and that needs to be replaced. So it's, again, it puts the contractor in position to do the work while they're there with the walls and roofs open and having funding available to get the whole project done in the best way possible. So along those lines, we would be requesting a recommendation to the board to authorize administration to execute the contract as presented in the amount of $56,970. There's actually two contracts, I should say, to the two sub-base bids, and allocate the allocation and fees of $91,965 plus a contingency of $5,609 for a grand total of $153,664. Last item on the list, and then I'll bug everybody for questions in terms of the volume tonight. The district belongs to the International Academy on an annual basis. This board's required as a member of the, for lack of a better word, I call it a consortium. It's technically not a consortium, but it functions like that. So we're a member district, and we have requirements on us. One of them is to approve their budget. So our real choices when it comes to their budget is we can approve it, we can disapprove it, or we can abstain, very much similar to our approach to the Oakland Schools budget. The difference here is if we disapprove the budget with the IA, it automatically triggers our withdrawal from the IA. So just I want you to be aware of that. This is just a first reading too tonight. So a couple of points in terms of where the budget's at. There's a subset of business managers that reviews the budget and part of the process of development. And really, we come in at the back end of the process and fly spec what their thinking is, why this, why that kind of process. That ends up as this budget that's now before you tonight for the IA. It's based upon a $9,500 per pupil tuition charge, similar in concept to the foundation allowance, but it's referred to as tuition, functionally speaking. And then we do, as a district, we have 39 students participating within the IA now. So conceptually, we have 10 slots. They refer to them as slots per grade level of the 9 through 12 high school level. So we could theoretically have up to 40 kids there, I believe. And Heidi, correct me if I'm wrong, we're currently at 39 in terms of that process. So that is a first reading. A lot of information. Please, any questions on any of the four items, I'd be more than happy to address.
All right, questions for John? A lot of territory there.
I did drink some caffeinated coffee just before the meeting, so it's just rolling.
Hey, John, I just wanted to talk about the buses for a second.
Absolutely.
So you did say you get to pick to make sure that there's not a lemon. Do you have any experience with this manufacturer, that there have been buses that did have a bunch of issues? Like, were there any outliers that you said, I'm not buying that one?
No.
No, okay.
No, actually, we have a very good working relationship with our lease supplier, and we are very experienced in the underlying elements of the buses. We predominantly use Thomas buses, Cummins engines, so we know exactly what we want when we order them in through the process. So then we've had the advantage of using these buses for, I think, for the most of a year and a half is the longest time. Their lease life on these vehicles are beyond 1 year, so we would have had 3 years and then a new roll. So this comes in the middle and saying, we know we like these buses, we know what we want, these buses that they are performing well, we want these, and we're going to follow this approach to buy them out, to lock down those vehicles for, 8 to 10 years, typical.
So that's the ballpark of its life is 8 to 10?
Yeah, depending upon style of vehicle, the special needs buses will generally last a little longer because they are designed for specific routes, usually specific students, and versus the big general ed buses that are going through lots of fun roads and different weather conditions all the time that are much more exposed.
Awesome, thank you.
And these are all low mileage vehicles as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
So,
That was part of the criteria. When we did do the RFP process, a lot of that was for compliance purposes, but we also knew there's other people that do the same business, the people that we use. So it helps to keep them on their toes, for lack of a better description, as well as if there is a possibility, we might be missing something somewhere, We had someone respond from the state of Washington that is in the same kind of business. So, and who knows what they were coming up with, but in comparison, where we landed is, because we have this specific experience with this operation, that's our best, our recommendation is the best way to go.
Awesome.
yeah, and the thing I appreciate, John, is that we have done this before. And you've made these decisions based on what serves the district best. at one point, leasing served us best. This is serving us best at this time, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Other questions for John?
I have a couple.
Yep, go ahead.
If you said this when you were talking about the copiers and I missed it, and I will apologize ahead of time, but you went through and described the previous process with the lease, purchase,
Right.
sell it. But this time you're buying outright up front. What is the plan for when those are in need of replacement?
Assuming we're not in a position where in 6 years from now, there's a massive amount of federal funding coming on our doorstep, we'll go back to our normal operating plan. We'd go out for an RFP.
Okay.
Look for a 5-year lease with a buyout, do the same approach, get 6, 7 years out of them, sell off old assets and that
Okay,
process.
I appreciate that. And then I'm going to jump to the International Academy budget. And there are some lines on there where it's different, and I want to ask you a couple questions about where the increases or decreases are. So on pupil services, is that just a reflection of everybody's foundation allowance coming together at a higher rate in there? Is that what that increases for them?
I'm going to get, I can't tell you off the top of my head specifically. There was conversation about bringing in additional social emotional support personnel into the building.
Okay.
I'm going to get, I have to go back to the details, and I'll do that after the meeting, but I'm going to guess that's exactly where it would be.
Okay. And then school administration, I think that's an increase, but maybe they hired somebody from an open position, I'm thinking, because that's a big
They
leap
they
in
were
that.
carrying an open position for most of the COVID period, so it
Okay.
may be a bump up, or a bump up reflection over that time frame, actually filling. Because they, that building ran much like everybody else, in and out over the last 2 years, and frankly, you weren't going to get certain personnel to come in during that time frame.
Sure. And then on their physical plant services, that actually decreased. Do you have that's interesting. I don't know what physical plant services means.
That's the equivalent to our facility and operations
Okay.
lines. They do carry an element within there that is a debt service payment mechanism. The Bloomfield Hills issued a bond many years back to renovate that facility, and it's coming to an end, so I'm going to guess that's what that's going to be driving, that actual portion of the repayment
Okay.
is now gone.
All right. And then it points out that this is the mid-year budget on the left, and then this is a preliminary budget for the next fiscal year. And we're halfway through. I know in the past, they look to be on target, but in the past, sometimes at the end, they've had problems and had to dip into fund balance to pay it.
There's a couple of years where they intentionally dipped in, and then a year there they didn't, but ended up dipping in.
So I just, they look,
Right. At this point,
we're
they're
looking
showing
like
they're
they
where they're
won't need to
supposed
do
to.
that. Okay. That's where I was headed. All right, thank you.
Is it your recommendation to approve this or to abstain from it?
From my perspective, based upon how we handled the OS budget, I mean, I'm inclined to abstain because again, I almost see them as a standalone. But there is a little difference because we do have more responsibility in the game. So I guess
do.
that I'm thinking about, I'd probably recommend an outright approval. Actually, I would recommend with
Yeah.
whatever Ben wants to do.
I would recommend approving, yes. Yes, I thought that's where we were at, and I think it would be.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because we do different things, like the OS budget
This
is
is
got
different
for
from the
different
Oakland
reasons.
schools arrangement.
For sure, I just wanted to make sure that
Yep, good
That's a good question.
To tie into that, there were several discussions about the governance model of that. So I was just going to ask you, Ben, if, where you're at. I mean, I fully support being part of this program. It's a great opportunity for our students. But have you become comfortable with this new governance model where the representative districts, et cetera, just what your impression of how that's going?
Yeah, it's going much better than where it was, for sure. And yes, I am comfortable with the governance model as well as what the program has to offer. I've talked with Mr. Hawley and Mrs. Mercer about the programming and how it impacts our kids, and it definitely meets a need, and the way they're operating is appropriate.
Good to hear.
Okay, any other questions for John on these items?
Just one quick one, John,
Yes.
on the copiers. I think you said it, but you were going on your coffee so quick there. You went with the Minolta brand, and that kind of came in at the middle of the quotes. I'm assuming that's because the overall cost of ownership, given its quality, would offset the two lower quotes.
Yeah, then in that case, from doing just the overall financial, clinical, if you will, financial analysis piece, their actual click count pricing relative to their machine piece, when it's all added together, put them in the top spot.
Okay,
And we've had experience with them 2 sets ago, and so we're familiar with the product and that kind of thing as well.
great. Thank you.
Good. Others? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Move on to action items, and may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I move that we approve the following consent agenda items. Approve payment of the March bills in the amount of $8,711,018.11. Approve minutes from the March 23rd regular, March 9th Lamp of Learning Committee, March 22nd Superintendent Evaluation Committee, and March 25th, 2022 Board Self-Assessment Committee meetings. Also approving out-of-state and overnight field trip requests for the LOHS Marching Band to Jackson, Michigan from August 21st to the 27th of 2022. And also the Orion Oaks Rock Club to Sandusky, Ohio on June 4th of 2022. And also approving the Head Start Coordinator's report.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. Move on to, may I have a motion to approve certified new hires?
I move to approve the 2 certified new hires as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Certified new hires are approved. And Jake?
Well, welcome to Caroline and Amanda, but
Thank you. All right.
Sometimes you got a job, Jake, and that's it.
You've been deputized. All right, so we'll move on. May I have a motion to authorize bid award for transportation?
I move to authorize administration to execute the purchase of 10 general education and 6 special education buses from Hoekstra Transportation in the amount of $1,115,442 as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The bid award for transportation is authorized. May I have a motion to authorize, hang on, please.
It's 6 in the pack.
Right. It's jumping around here. May I have a motion to authorize a bid award for copiers?
I move to authorize administration to execute a contract to purchase copiers, installation services, training, and support from Konica Minolta in the amount of $359,050.40 and allocate contingency of $35,905 for a total award of $394,955.40 as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you from both of you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The bid award for copiers is authorized. May I have a motion to authorize bid award for Walden and Oakview Technology Electrical?
I move to authorize administration to execute a contract with EL Electrical Contracting for electrical work to accommodate new technology at Walden and Oakview Middle Schools in the amount of $56,090 and allocate contingency of $97,574 for a total award of $153,664 as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The bid award for Walden and Oakview Technology Electrical is authorized. And we'll move on to, there is no public participation in this category either. We'll move on to action items and recap and next steps.
Thank you. As far as next steps, the strategic planning review on your, for you guys to do, and as well as the board goals, reviewing that and providing any feedback that you might have as we potentially would have these on the next agenda as well for action items, unless there's need for continued discussion. So those would be the follow-up items.
Great, thank you. All right, closing comments?
Welcome to, welcome to our newest Dragons.
All right, thank you, John. Rick?
Nothing other than just John, stay off the coffee next time.
I kind of like it.
Heidi?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you.
Rick, he talked fast and made sense, so it was good. It was really good. I just wanted to thank everybody that was involved with the strategic planning. You know, we invited people to either be that were part of it to be here this evening or to watch on ON TV, and so we're thankful. Mr. Wright was part of the process. Ms. Sanawi was part of the process, and we thank you for being there. And of course, some of the other buildings are represented here tonight, Weber, Oakview, of course, Orion Oaks, as I just mentioned, and Blanche Sims staff, they were there to get the copy machine support in. So I saw the elation when it was approved. So thank you for being here. But I did want to mention to the board, you know, as our team continues to grow together, I think you guys have really established a good, comfortable, and safe environment to have good discussions. I think you had some good quality discussion and continue to, you know, work through some of these things that we need to do to continue to lead well in the district. So thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Happy Passover and a happy Easter to everybody out there.
Thank you, Steve. Susan?
Nothing from my side, thank you.
All right, thank you. Scott?
I wanted to say how cool the Blanche Sims groundbreaking was. If you guys weren't there, they actually took a kid from each grade and put a hard hat on him and gave him a shovel. And so they got to break the ground. And so I thought that was awesome, a very cool touch. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Danielle?
Awesome. Yeah, just thank you for the open discussion tonight about all the work we've put in. And I just want to add two things about the strategic planning, session, the retreat that we did. There were times, I mean, for those of us, most of us were there, but there were times when we broke off into other groups to come up with the mission and the goals and things like that. And Greg and Debbie mentioned it, how the theme was dragons, right? We're all dragons. And actually, I was in a group with Chris Barnett, and that was one of the things he said that his brother wishes Rochester had, was that overall sense of community. And it's just such a cool thing that in Lake Orion we have that. We're all dragons, no matter, where you come from, hold you're a dragon. We don't care. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, one of our statements is dragons will be empowered to achieve joy and success. And that actually came out of one of those groups too. And it was actually one of our teachers, Dakota Cooper, and his words just stuck with me. And it was, we all experience success differently, and it all looks differently to everybody. And I think that's just such a cool statement to have, because we don't define what success is. We let everyone decide what their own joy and success is. So anyway, just want to leave you with those thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Jake?
Yeah, I touch on a couple things that the two people to my left did. That those 6 kids that came up at Blanche Sims today, it was amazing. They were well-behaved, and the youngest kid, the kindergartner, that Mr. News spoke, and she gives him the biggest thumbs up, like, you did it, Mr. News. You spoke in front of all those people, and you didn't get scared. And it's just, you see these kids, and and Ken said it during the meeting, that it just reminds us why we're doing this, is that they're gonna have this awesome new building that the kids will get to have in another school year. So that's great. And then for the strategic planning, just to see the work and the engagement that we had over 900 people, put in their activities, over 30 people were there with us all day. And I think that was one of the things that when Heidi said, it's important that this isn't just us. It really brought the whole community together. And the comment about dragons, that there's 3 of us that don't live in in Orion, but how do you describe where you are? Lake Orion. And they're like, why don't I say I live in Clarkston? Because I live in Independence Township. Because I'm a dragon. Like, I'm not from Clarkston. I'm a dragon. So that's how it works around here. That's our core identity. And I think that our strategic plan and pushing our schools forward will really do that. So I just love being part of that process.
Thank you, Jake.
Awesome.
Birgit.
No, I thank you, everybody, for your comments. I appreciate the collaboration tonight. The discussion was excellent, and it feels like every day's a great day to be a dragon, so go Dragons.
Thank you. And I, too, would like to thank all the people along the way on this long journey as we arrive at a conclusion on the strategic planning process. It's been a monumental effort by a lot of people, and I very much appreciate everyone who's been involved. The other thing is, I appreciate all of you. Our thoughtful discussion tonight about where we're going and how we're going to conclude this process was excellent, and was also very respectful to one another's opinions, and I think that's part of the next step of this process, that we're going to hear a lot of different opinions, but we need to respect those and move forward as a group, and I think we did a great job tonight, so thank you very much for that. And on that note, we are adjourned. Thank you and good night.
Under 2 hours.